Welcome to Casper's Ice Cream. Over 85 years ago, my grandfather, Casper Merrill, grew up on the family dairy farm in Richmond, Utah. The company is in its third generation now, but let's take a look back in time to see how this ice cream legacy began. As a young man growing up in the Merrill family, working in the family business, it was always fun to hear the stories told of how Casper would take the ice that he'd cut from the river and make an ice and salt brine solution to help him freeze the ice cream prior to refrigeration being invented. And then he would have to hurry and put them in a 10-gallon milk can, surrounded by ice and salt again in barrels, load them on wagons, and take them to the local July 4th celebration and sell them before they melted for people to enjoy. I think if there was one thing that I could say that my grandpa passed on to the following generations was that of hard work ethic and working on making the very best quality products for the consumer to enjoy.
I'm Richard Merrill, and I'm the oldest son of Casper Merrill. I was born in 1930.
And I'm Derwin Merrill, 4 years younger than Richard. I remember the two of us growing up and doing farming and making ice cream all at the same time.
And Casper sold the farm to the church, and we packed up and become city boys.
Full-fledged ice cream manufacturers. I can remember as a young boy, it was my job to dip the Cascos, and back then you'd have to pick them up one at a time. You'd pick one up, dip it in the chocolate, transfer it to this hand, pick up another one, dip it, well, this one's getting ready to nut, then nut that one, and then transfer, and just keep going. And I could do 6 a minute that way. Now I think they do over 60 a minute.
Yeah, I never could catch on to doing that way, so I was the one to defrost them out of the molds, and
someone else bag them and box them.
Yeah, let you be the dipper.
We worked in the, I forget what they called the room, where they sold ice cream too, and they had a little stand there where they could make ice cream. The Cascos, they had a pot that had chocolate, hot chocolate in, and a little table there, and we would dip the Cascos, we'd get them out of the freezer and then dip the ice cream in the chocolate and then roll it in the nuts on the table. And then we'd put it in a bag and put it in the boxes, and when the box was full, we would put it in a little freezer that was in the wall there. And that was our job, we'd do that. Mildred Merrill, a relative of mine, worked with me too at times, and that was fun. We enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun to work there.
These brine barrels are where they would freeze down the ice cream, similar to homemade ice cream churns available now. The metal cylinders would freeze the mix while the salt and ice would create a frosty reaction action. Once the ice cream was solid, the metal bucket would be dipped in warm water and dumped out onto the table to be cut. They would have to quickly cut the ice cream into blocks. In the early days, a meat skewer was put into one end to help dip the chocolate and roll in the nuts.
Sometimes I remember staying with the boys. Other times I got to go to the fairs. I would go with them, and they'd have a stand at the fairs, and I'd work in the stand. And that was fun. When we went to different places like that, I enjoyed that. And it was fun to be around Casper and his family, and the children were smaller than young. And so it was fun to be around them.
Casper was always a prankster. This is one story that is told over and over again.
Lonnie Goodfellow here with the Casper's Radio Hour. Our guest today is Gordon Henley, here to tell us about the Great Freeze of 1933.
When I was just a sprout, during the Great Depression, my friends and I would walk 5 miles to Casper's ice cream store whenever we had 2 nickels to rub together. One time, good old Casper himself had a challenge for us. He said, "If you boys can eat an entire pint of ice cream in under a minute, you'll get another pint. Free!" Oh, what a deal. We took the challenge and dove into our pints. Let me tell you, we had been tricked. After 4 huge bites of Casper's cold sweet ice cream, we were rolling on the floor, holding our heads with a giant brain freeze. The Great Freeze of 1933. Casper just laughed and gave us our free pints anyway. I can still hear him.
Ice cream works every time.
Just 10 years after opening in 1936, Casper's Ice Cream was producing 45 dozen per day. All the product made would have to be sold within a few days as there was no advanced cooling systems to store the excess product. As you can see today, we can make over 8,000 dozen, which can be stored in a freezer that is 20 below zero, extending the quality and shelf life of the product. In 1946, the malt shop and manufacturing was relocated to Cache Valley's business district. With the new equipment, the process was much more efficient and primitive refrigeration was installed. The salt brine solution was still used, but ice was no longer needed in the process. The ice cream was poured into molds and slid across the brine tank to freeze. Sticks were then added to the ice cream and were solidly lodged upon its arrival on the opposite end, where an employee would use the stick to dip the ice cream molds into a vat of hot water to release the ice cream. The nut sundaes were then dipped into chocolate and rolled into fresh kettle-roasted peanuts. Since most ice cream manufacturing technology had yet to be invented, Casper designed and built his own one-of-a-kind custom equipment to fit his needs. Some of his custom designed equipment included items such as continuous ice cream freezers, boxers, gluers, and freeze tunnels. Though efficient for 1946, this is now considered a very labor-intensive process. Even the boxes were hand-folded and glued. In 1977, with the help of his 2 sons, Richard and Derwin, Casper once again relocated the manufacturing company back to a stone's throw from the family farm and the original ice cream making site. Once again, Casper invented an updated process for this facility. Unlike any of its kind currently used, this process takes ice cream on continuous stainless steel belts stretching a 1/4 mile through a freeze tube.